Hello everybody, Jason here from the At the Coalface podcast. I've created a new sub-series called Mentoring Moments, and Mentoring Moments is composed of clips taken from my one-on-one and group mentorship sessions where we discuss e-commerce, digital, retail, and so much more. Hopefully you get a lot out of this. Enjoy.
You need to, did you see your hand up there? So did you want to kick
I
off?
mute myself for the fifth time in a day. I have a question, Jason. You've been doing this like Q&A, right? AMA for the last 3 weeks, like 1.5 months, 2 months with 2 different groups. What your biggest take from doing it?
My biggest take is that there are a lot of similarities in the challenges that people are facing in their professional life, their career progression, their challenges around digital e-com. There's a lot of similarities and overlap between what people are facing. The questions are always slightly different, but the context can often be quite similar. And so there are patterns that are starting to form, and particularly with my one-to-ones, because I'm working with 2 different agency founders or agency leads, and then I'm working with someone who works directly in e-commerce. She's a marketing manager for an e-commerce brand. I'm working with one e-commerce manager for an e-commerce brand. And certainly there's certain themes that are coming up and recurring over and over again. But I think some of the central themes are, how do I break into a career in digital? How do I progress quickly in a career in digital? How do I learn quickly? How can I learn platform technology quickly so that I'm more employable and I can move up the ranks quicker? How can I deal with customers if I'm working agency side? How can I set realistic expectations with customers? How can I have these difficult pricing discussions with customers? How can I have difficult payment discussions with customers when they don't pay on time, or there's definitely similar themes coming out of all of these discussions. And it's really good. Some of the questions occasionally will come a bit out of left field and they're unexpected, but a lot of them are, I wouldn't say they're repetitive, but certainly there are patterns to a lot of challenges that people are facing. And so it does make it easier for me to discuss or speak to those questions, because they're almost all cases, they are challenges that I faced myself, or they're situations or scenarios that I've had to deal with myself throughout my career. And so it definitely, that kind of context, that relevant context of where someone is at today and where they want to get to, and them having a really clear picture of what that path or that perfect path or that ideal path looks like for them, that provides me super valuable context to be able to speak from my experience and hopefully adapt my experiences to being relevant advice for them. So those are some of the things that have come out of the discussions I've been having over the last 2.5 months.
Interesting.
So basically what I'm saying is, in a nutshell, is almost every single question that I've been asked over the last 2.5 months is relevant, not just to that individual, but is very relevant to a very broad audience of people, because they're facing very similar things. Even if they don't say it, they're facing it.
So right now, I would just like to pitch this question. I'm not sure. I'm currently working in eCommerce, so I'm not sure if you're already aware of the brand. So I'll just give you a quick brief. So we are into integration, we are integration providers. So we basically build solutions for the online e-commerce sellers out there. These solutions basically act as a bridge between the merchant's website and onto the marketplace, right? So we are a product-based company, and then we have a number of products. So all of them are all are similar, they have similar features and everything. There's this thing that comes in, how do we align that brand which resonates in every of our campaign, or let's say every content piece that goes out, be it a video, be it a blog, be it a thought leadership content, or the value. Is this something that's a proper question for this session? I'm not sure. Please excuse me if it's not.
Yeah, no, there's no good or bad questions. I think all questions are relevant. And I think we've had similar conversations. We had another gentleman who specializes in search and merch technology. That's what the company he works for develops, search and merch technology. And he had a very similar question. He said, there's a lot of search and merch platforms out there, from Algolia to SearchSpring there's probably 10 major, very well-known search and merch platforms in the market right now for e-commerce. And he said his key question was, how do we start to differentiate? How do we start to position ourselves? How do we, other than just purely competing on price, how do we start to make a name for ourselves in the market that is unique And how do we help customers differentiate and make a decision between our platform and other competing platforms in the marketplace other than price? And I guess my advice to you would be very similar to the advice that I gave to him, which is, when you are starting to move into the commodity software space, which you are, so you're an omni-channel connector, right? You're an omni-channel software connector. Mark works in the custom system integration space, primarily with back office systems, but you're working with front-end connectors that connect, say, for example, a Shopify or a BigCommerce or a Magento to an Amazon, to an eBay, to a Catch, to all the major Mercado Libre, whatever it might be. And so really you're like a product feed engine that formats the product catalog, sends it out to these marketplaces, and then pulls down orders back into the e-commerce platform, ERP, or whatever it might be, where they want to process their orders. And so this space is heavily commoditized. If you go into the Shopify App Store today, there's about 30 different marketplace connector apps in the marketplace today, and it feels like a new one comes out every single week. And then you have regionally popular platforms, right? You've got GoData Feed, which is pretty global, and then down here in ANZ, you've got the likes of Omnivore doing very similar things. Yeah. And the only way that I know of to really stand out in the crowd is to really be putting out content that is entertaining, is educational, is going to, because I really don't see many of these other brands. In fact, I can't think of anyone off the top of my head from any of these 30 plus platform providers that is routinely putting out content on LinkedIn, for example, educating the market, entertaining the market, showing them the power of being able to connect to all these marketplaces easily, and adopting new marketplaces or adopting new channels for that matter. Because most of these connectors, similar to yours, are also able to connect catalogs, for example, to social media platforms and push those up to social platforms like Facebook and Instagram, and then pull down and redirect people from those, for example, those links, those catalogs, once they're uploaded, and you say run an ad, or you put an organic post with a link to that product, then it links through to the product, right? Your product URL, because it comes through in the product feed. So I think that, and this goes for any software platform out there, whether it's commoditized or not, the reality is the more visible you are, the more you become the only name that people think of when they have that need. If you are the only one putting out content, if you are the only one that is constantly every single day in everybody's face about the power of omnichannel commerce and how easy it can be to adopt an omnichannel model, a business model in a business, and you show the mechanics of how that works, and you talk about the value and the differentiation of each platform, you talk about how the marketplaces differ in the way that they want to receive products and why they're different, how you can do SEO via the middleware platform, how you can structure the content coming out of your catalog in the proper way for those destination channels to get really good cut through and really good SEO representation in those platforms. I think if you're doing things like that, if you are running lunch and learn type sessions like this, for example, but not for your product, but for the concepts that you guys solve for, I think instead of selling through your content, if you are educating and you are entertaining through your content, then by definition, when people follow your profile through to your profile homepage on LinkedIn, they're going to know what company you work for. You don't need to tell them. For example, I don't need to tell people that I own a consulting agency. They don't need to know that because they find out.
I was gonna say, Jason, I will buy anything from you. You don't have to tell me what you're selling. But that reminds me of something, Shruti. I don't know if you heard a company called Crossbeam. Anyone here heard about that company?
No, I've never heard of them.
I'm in the technology space. So Crossbeam is like company A and company B, the partner manager want to know each other account, and they do account mapping. So they offer that, right? So they were the first one, and they're starting to create a lot of like thought leaderships, like blogs, like where you're saying, like about how to do like integration partnership, how do you advance your career in partnership, and the success story in success in partnership. So they did all those things. So all of us that in the field follow them and then waiting for the email every week, because we feel like we being educated, right? So like now they have competitor like Refill or PartnerStack. They all this new player, PartnerTap, but they try to the easiest way is to put your money to kind of co-sponsor an event, right? The partnership event. But guess who we partner people look after, like we want to talk to prospect, we don't want to talk to refill, because we know that's what's branded in our mind. They educating us, so they live there, like Jason said, right? So now everyone know who Shen Blanda, because he's the content writer. So he's not even like the C-suite, but he's the content writer for that. So he sends us email every week and we wait for his email. But yeah.
No, you've hit the nail on the head. Sorry to interrupt you, Shruti. You've definitely hit the nail on the head. And when I think of, for example, if I think of B2B SaaS marketing, right, I only think of Chris Walker. There's literally no one else on LinkedIn that I would even cross my mind as being a B2B SaaS marketer. And therefore, I automatically think of his name, and I automatically think of Refine Labs, his company, as being the B2B SaaS marketing agency. And they're the only one I know of. If I was in that space, let's say I had a new SaaS piece of software and I was looking for help marketing this software to the market, and I was looking for help with go-to-market strategy, and I was looking for really a comprehensive omni-channel full court press of trying to leverage organic social, paid social. If I was looking at leveraging a podcast, if I was looking at leveraging all the channels they leveraged to build their business in the first place, then they would be a natural fit for me to want to go and work with, because literally he posts every single day. His team posts virtually every single day. I listen to their podcast. I listen to all their podcast episodes, and it even helps me working in the B2B world. It helps me to understand some of the unique pain points in the B2B space because of all the experience that they have, that they talk about. It helps me because I'm pitching oftentimes, my business is a B2B business. So I'm serving other businesses, and I'm specifically serving B2B merchants. And so me having that real empathy and developing that empathy through absorbing their content is allowing me to upskill and become better at what I do. And by definition, whenever I think of that space, they are the only ones that I think of. So you absolutely make a very good point that I may not have need of their services today, but there's no guarantee that I won't start a SaaS company in the future. In fact, I probably will at some point start a SaaS business in the future or work with a SaaS business. And so therefore, there's every likelihood that at some point in the future, I'll need to work with Refine Labs. But the groundwork that Chris has put in over the last 2, 3, 4 years is what will lead to that closing of the sale 2, 3, 4 years from now. So I think playing the long game is really important, Shruti.
Informational content and repurposing, I would say repurposing the information all in all again. And just to, a quick summary of what you said, it's better to come up with individual profiles rather than posting content from eCommerce, the main social account.
The key thing here to remember is that people want to connect with people. They don't want to connect. I go out of my way not to follow business pages on LinkedIn. Now, the downside of LinkedIn is that you cannot promote content for personal profiles. You can only promote content for business profiles. But what you can do, and I got this piece of advice from someone else on LinkedIn, funnily enough, so I'm not trying to pretend that this was my advice, but it was, again, piece of content that a marketer put out on LinkedIn and said, hey, this is how we handle it. Because we can't promote our company page, what we do is we have personal content from our C-suite that performs really well. We use the highest performing content from our C-suite on LinkedIn. Then we screenshot it on LinkedIn with the number of likes and the number of comments. We capture that whole screen capture of the content itself and the interaction. And then what we do is we post that image to our company profile page, and then we promote that post. So it looks like an organic post, even though it's an image posted to the business page. And then they promote that post. And then what they do is from that post, they have the hyperlink to the original post on the personal profile. So that's how they've gotten around that limitation on LinkedIn of LinkedIn not allowing you to promote personal posts. But what they do is they use their personal profiles as the proving ground for the content that is going to resonate and perform well. And then they screen grab that, put it on their company page, and then promote that post. So there are ways around that on LinkedIn to where you can promote your company profile, and you can put out paid media against your company profile to distribute it to the exact target market that you want to distribute it to. But the content always has to originate from a personal profile. Being personable, being open and transparent and vulnerable and honest, which is how I try to be with my content, it's very clearly coming from a human being. It's very clearly not coming from a corporate, nameless, faceless corporation. And I think that's why my content resonates. And I think that's the way content has to be done nowadays. And my advice also is to not sell through, not directly ever try to sell through your content. Now, some people will say, look, I sell through my content and it works very well. Okay, that's fine. But I think if you're going to sell through your content, limit it to maybe one post in 10 or two posts in 10 maximum that has any selling component to it. And don't make it about the selling, make it about the content first, make it about the education, make it about the edutainment first, and then maybe put a link to your website, or maybe talk about what you do in the last sentence or something like that, or link to the company profile or whatever it might be. But my advice is the longer you can delay selling via your content, the more valuable your audience will become to you. Because for me, I never sell through my content. I'm trying to think if I've ever, in 4 to 5 years of putting out content almost every single day, I'm trying to think if I ever put out a single selling post. I may have, but I'm pretty sure I've never put out a post that was blatantly selling anything. It was always about the content and the education first, primarily educating me because I was learning about something or I just experienced something or whatever, and I wanted to share that with my audience. And then again, I just rely on the fact that people can follow my profile and go back to my profile if they want to know what I do and they want to connect with me there and they want to potentially work with me. They could just go to my profile and figure that out for themselves.
That brings me to my next question. Let's say, okay, this is one thing for the company and stuff. So let's say, because this is somehow, again, I'm building my personal brand. I'm doing my personal branding as well, right? This way. Is it okay if I pick up two niches, like one e-commerce, and then I talk about content and stuff? Okay, this is how you should, like, because I believe like I have certain expertise in the e-commerce, in the content and side field as well, along with e-commerce. So is it, or will that be relevant, because I come up with mostly e-commerce sort of postings and everything?
Yeah, if you look back at my content, I've got 3 or 4 major pillars that compose maybe 80% of my content, right? It's about B2B, it's about D2C, it's about the industry news, etc. But then there's probably 20 to 30% of my content that is about other things. Humans are multifaceted individuals. And so my perspective is funnily enough, my most personal posts, the ones that are about my personal life, are the ones that always perform the best. I remember about 2 years ago, I posted a post about living in an off-grid tiny house. And it's still to this day is my top performing post of all time on LinkedIn. And that was a very personal post. It had nothing to do with business at all. And to this day, every single one of my personal posts that are the most vulnerable and are about my personal life are my top performing posts. I've got very good performing posts, very well high performing posts that are business related, but my personal posts, the ones that are about my hobbies, my interests, my life outside of work, those are the ones that always perform the best. So my advice is be who you are. You like the things that you like, the hobbies that you like. Sure, there's 3 or 4 pillars that you want to talk about on a regular basis so that people know what you're about through a business lens. But I think people want to know what you're about through a personal lens too, because that shows vulnerability. It shows honesty. It shows an insight, a view into someone's life that you may want to work with because of those views that they hold. You may decide, I don't want to work with these people because of the personal views or the personal interests that they have. I think your vibe attracts your tribe. And I was pretty vocal, for example, at different times about New Zealand's handling of COVID. Now, there's a lot of people that wouldn't necessarily agree with my position on that. And that's fine. They'll self-select out of working with me through my content, right? And that's fine. I'm totally okay with that because I want to work with people that I'm naturally aligned with and that I'm going to bring massive value to their business and that they are going to recognize that value in their business. If we're not aligned, then there's no point in working together anyway. And so I feel like the more vulnerable I can be, the more honest I can be without running afoul of LinkedIn's algorithms, the better off I will be. But there are certainly 2 to 3 to 4 really key business pillars that I talk about on a very regular basis. But 20 to 30% of my content is very random, so to speak.
You just gotta have to find like your niche, right? I don't know if you've seen this enough, Jason. I don't know if it's the same with all you guys. Like for me, if I go to LinkedIn, I know some people like use LinkedIn always to promote something about their company. And I'm like, next. Obviously, we want to promote something about what we do, our company, but that shouldn't be the main objective on LinkedIn. You're probably talking about different channels, right? But we're talking about LinkedIn here. I think it's just remember who is like your niche, right? And just I think that's what people probably, I don't know, maybe it's COVID or what happened in the last 3 years. I think people becoming more and more vulnerable, right? For example, I don't have anything. I don't have social media except LinkedIn. And I think a lot of people like that because it's just too much. There's just so many hours in a day, right? So, and you only have one. So it's everything is blurred. And I think like the best people I know, for example, like in the managed service provider in that partnership, like she is the leader in that space. And she always talk about her two daughters. And then we all like it because I'm also a mom. So anything that you can relate it to your tribe.
Totally agree. Very good point, Unita.
I hope this will be my last question. So it's like, how do you plan your content, or maybe what's the best strategy of planning your content? There are websites like marketpulse.com, then Teambay, and so on and so forth, like so many of them out there. So how do you like plan out your content? Just, okay, we know that this thing is coming from Jason, or I know, okay, so this is 9 a.m. in the morning and I'll open LinkedIn and there's your post coming up, right? So I'll leave a comment if that's very much fascinating with me, or maybe that's a news that I read, or let's say it's a buy with Prime, Amazon versus Shopify's this war between them. So I know I can relate there, I can engage with the post. So how should we do that basically, or how do you do that actually?
Look, I think everybody's different in what spurs them or what inspires them to post. For me, I subscribe to a few different industry newsletters. Payments.com, I subscribe to their newsletter. I subscribe to 4 or 5 of the Dive newsletters. I subscribe to TechCrunch. I subscribe to a couple of other industry newsletters, like the most popular industry newsletters that anyone can subscribe to. I subscribe to only 2 paid newsletters, which is Business Insider and The Information, are the only 2 paid newsletters I subscribe to. And then I have Google Alert set up. I have Google Alert set up for all the main interests that I have, like business interests that I have, to make sure I don't miss anything major. And then every single morning, I've got an inbox full of potential inspiring content to talk about, or even if I don't necessarily speak specifically about that news story, or I don't speak specifically about that article or that piece of content, it will spur some other thought that I've had rattling around in my head recently, or something that I've gone through with a client recently that resonates. Or I can refer back to that and I can say, according to this report, this recent report, this is what they say. I've experienced this myself in this situation, for example, and I can reference those things. And so I think if you can, I don't pre-plan like in advance. I basically go through my content in the morning that I'm going to absorb and I'm going to read. It's usually anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes in the morning. When I first get up in the morning, I'll go through and I'll read the really relevant emails. I'll look at the Google News alerts. I'll see if there's anything super relevant to me at that time. If not, then I'll just come up with my own post that I feel like is relevant for the day. I was thinking this morning, I just happened to be looking at my share portfolio, which is how I came up with my content for this morning. Because I was thinking, sure, I'm not worried at all about my investments, like not at all. But I was thinking to myself, a lot of people that maybe only started investing at the peak, maybe they only started investing a year ago or within the last 18 months, they'll be crapping themselves because of the year-to-date drop in the S&P, for example. And I thought, let's get some perspective on this and let's relate this back to business and personal life. And so I just took a couple of screenshots and I wrote a post about it. And I thought, well, this isn't like my normal type of content, but it is business related, it is personal related, and it is based on my experiences. And so I felt like this is just something that made sense for me to post in the moment. So I find inspiration almost everywhere, to be honest. It's not any one place. And I don't pre-plan like a week in advance, because I find that if you plan too far in advance, the news is out of date too quickly. And there's so much news coming out on a daily basis. You want to try to stay current and try to stay relevant if you can.
That does make sense. And we think about the stock prices and all of that. So I just saw this post before joining this call, I would say.
Yeah, and I think it's seen through, that piece of content is really seen through the lens of empathy for people that are really panicked and worried, and they can't think about their job, they can't think about their family life, they can't go to the gym, they can't walk their dog, they're glued to their screen every day as the market continues to fall, and it's paralyzing them like a deer in the headlights. I just want to remind people that when you get perspective, when you take the 30,000 foot view, nothing, both positive and negative. So I think we have to take the same mindset around anything hyper positive that is in our life. I think we have to take that in a broader context, right? Otherwise we get too focused on the positive, and maybe it hurts our work ethic, or maybe it kills our hunger to achieve new things or to learn new things. And so I think we have to keep a balance there. And when you take that 30,000 foot view of the positive and the negative that's happening in your life, I think that really helps us to stay much more balanced, much more even keel, and also the concept of life happening for us, not to us. I think really keeping that mindset that everything that happens in life, it happens for a reason. We just have to figure out what that reason is and what can we learn from it. I think if we can keep those mindsets and those heart sets in mind, it makes life a lot more enjoyable, makes it a lot more bearable, and it helps us to find those people in our life that can make life better, and that hopefully we can make life better for them. And Mark, who's on this call, we became friends through business. That's how we met, but we're now great friends outside of business as well. And we only discovered each other, or I wouldn't have known about Mark if it wasn't through some joint projects, working together on some joint projects. But then once we took that relationship offline, he happens to live here in Auckland, so that made things a little bit easier. Once we took our relationship offline, we were able to bond over many more subjects other than work. And we found that we had a very similar worldview outside of work, but work led us to meet each other. So I think these great relationships can start through work relationships, but if you can take those offline and build something of meaning across the broader range of your life, other than just this one lens of work, I think it's a lot more fulfilling. It really is.
Hi, Jason. So that was so philosophical of you, and it was nice to hear. Very nice. 30,000 feet view. Awesome. Life for you and not to you. That's also awesome. Nice different view.
Thank you.
So I really align with your thought process in there. So that was very nice to hear from another person. And my question to you will be like, okay, so I'm in a career where I work for an agency, and my job is I have multiple clients who are grocery related. I develop strategies for it, basically, but most of the time, they're they're just maintenance based and rather than strategy based. Or even if you're driving into the direction, it takes quite a longer time, and it is not, how things work in the industry, not everything is like is given to you on a platter. It's just like dragging you in all directions, and then to see the results, it's going to take some time. But given the nature of this work, it's mostly, I'll have to say, 70% of maintenance and 30% of strategy to bring it more successful for Amazon business. So what are my options and a career? If you ask me what my interests are, I would say this strategy building would be similar to Walmart, Instacart, or any other platform. I'm also a little bit of analytical person, I believe. Like I'm thinking in these terms, like when I'm reading about a job description for a category manager or something like that interests me. So I'm trying to figure out how can I do that. That's where my interests spark, and I'm like pulled into doing those kind of stuff. So what would you say would be the best career choices that I can have or make? What would your thoughts be? Sometimes I feel like adding one last point. So sometimes I feel like maybe I can also take into consideration of a whole e-commerce as a whole. I don't know what's all more involved in e-commerce, but rather than just making strategies for Amazon, there's a lot more for e-commerce in general in itself. So I'm thinking that as well. So I'm open to your suggestions and thoughts.
Sure. Look, you look super young. Right. And so
really? I'm 35.
You are super young then. You're way younger than me. Look, okay. I feel like for most things, and this is true for me, and I think it's true for most people, I think you have to taste things, right? To know whether something is attractive to you or if it's as good of a fit for you as you think it's going to be. If you think category management is something that's of interest to you, then work as a junior category manager, or go get a job, or follow some category managers on LinkedIn and follow their content, or start subscribing to some industry newsletters for category managers. Really immerse yourself in that industry and start to get familiar with what the nitty-gritty daily life of a category manager looks like. I assume you mean like category manager for grocery, right? That's what you mean?
That's correct.
So look, I think the only way to know for sure whether that is something that interests you, I think you have to do it. And I think you have to taste it. Get on the ground floor, shadow some really category managers that you respect or are known in the industry, and see whether that's something that you like. Now, if you're wanting to go down the broader digital path or the broader e-commerce path, that's a clearer, from my perspective, that's an easier sell in terms of knowing where you should go next. So my advice would be go to an agency that does more than just strategy and tactics for Amazon. So go to a more broad-based e-commerce agency, maybe go to a broad-based, if you like the marketing side of e-com, then go to a marketing agency that does, for example, doesn't just do marketplace marketing. They do, for example, they might do email marketing, they might do performance marketing, they might do organic SEO and SEM. They might have multiple practices under the one roof that you can taste 2 or 3 different forms of digital marketing, and you can say, oh, I really love this. I really love this. I can develop my skills. I can move around in different roles in the business, and I can really broaden my skill set very rapidly because I'm being exposed to multiple clients working across multiple verticals, across multiple price points, and you're going to learn very fast in the agency environment. If you lean more towards the technical like I do, then you're going to want to go work for an e-commerce development agency, an agency that builds e-commerce websites and perhaps system integrates e-commerce websites into back office systems, ERPs, CRMs, PIM, CDP, point of sale, WMS, OMS, all those other supporting technologies within the holistic commerce stack. If you're working with an agency that deals with all of those technologies and you're a technical person, then you'll soon work out whether that's where your strength lies. And then at that point, you might decide, hey, because I'm a people person and I love the people aspect of the technical, maybe I'm going to become a business analyst, or maybe I'm going to become a solution architect, or maybe I'm going to become a project manager, or I'm going to become an account manager within one of those agencies. So I think there's roles for literally any personality type or any interest within our industry. There are roles for absolutely. I've yet to meet a person who, if they wanted to go into digital, couldn't find something that really resonated with them. My advice would be taste as many things as you can, and then you'll know, your heart will know. You'll go, this is me. Like from speaking for myself, I can't imagine doing anything other than what I'm doing. I literally cannot imagine doing anything else. I've been doing it a long time now, and I've narrowed my focus over the years, and I'm now doing something that I truly love. And I can't wait to do every single day. Now, if that changes in the future, which it may, then I'll do something else. But for now, I can't imagine doing anything else. And so I think if you can get to that place where you love what you're doing, that's a pretty special place to be.
Of course. That would be awesome. So yeah, and it's okay. So now about my agency, I know they have everything. Like I don't know if you have heard about them. It's Advantage Unified Commerce. So they actually are getting bigger day by day. There had a lot of been acquisitions made, small agencies, and they're just now one big company. Now, what they do is they do for everybody, like starting from Costco, HEB Plus, name it, they have everybody under their roof. And e-commerce here, this side is just one pillar for them. And I feel like there are a little bit openings coming out due to the organizational restructure. They are currently looking for, they're doing something like a person who could do a little bit of in-shopper kind of things, in-shopper and along with e-commerce. So something clubbing together the brick and mortar with the e-commerce. If there is something that they can do together, that's something e-commerce solutions, or so, that's the name that they would like to give for it. And that was one of the openings that was also coming up in the recent days. So I just feel if you are saying me to go taste certain things that I would like to, it would be okay to go ask in the organization and be, what do you call them? I don't know, to just shadow over with some person who's already doing the job and then try to take it. Is that correct?
I don't know any agency owner or founder or manager that does not like hungry, ambitious teams that are willing to learn and want to learn new skills. Okay. Because even if you don't move to another department in the business permanently, anything you learn, there are always skills and knowledge that are transferable to the role that you have today. So the breadth of my learning over the last 20 plus years, I use all of that learning across many different categories, across many different verticals, across many different businesses. All of that has helped to build me into the person that I am today. And if I had missed out on any of those experiences, I would be less capable at what I'm doing today. So I think that you have to trust that you are working in a place that wants to see you learn, wants to see you grow, wants to see you expand your skill set. And if they don't want to see you do that, if they want to keep you in a little box, then for me, if I was in your shoes, I'd be looking for somewhere else to work. It really just comes down to what your goal and your vision for your future is. And if you're really wanting to taste lots of things, if you can do that in your current environment, perfect. Put yourself in a position to learn as much as you possibly can in the time that you're there, whether it's 1 day, 1 month, 1 year, 10 years. Learn as much as you can in that environment from a variety of people. And then, when you're ready to move on, then you'll look for the next place that you can learn new things that you haven't learned before. So I look at a career, you either have to earn or learn. And if you can
Okay.
do both, then awesome.
That's
So
perfect.
I've taken roles before that didn't pay as well as other roles, but I had an opportunity to learn more in that environment than in the alternate environment that paid more. So at that point in my career, I chose the learn option over the earn option.
Option.
At
Mhm.
other times, I've chosen the earn option because I needed the money. And at different phases of life require different things. But I think you either have to earn or you have to learn. Otherwise, what is that opportunity bringing to the table for you? It has to be one of those two things.
Perfect. Thanks, Jason. That was wonderful.
Happy to help. My pleasure. Very good question. Very good question. I think these are very common concerns or common thoughts that a lot of people have in our industry. It's how do I make sure that I don't get stuck in my little box? That's the concern, right? It's if I do the
Exactly.
same thing for 5 years, am I going
Oh
to
yeah,
get
that's
shoehorned
boring too.
into exactly? You get tired of it and you only have, it's like the model of quiet quitting, right? I think half
Yep.
the reason people quiet quit is because they've lost the passion for what they're doing. They've lost the desire. They've lost the hunger. They've lost the ability to learn. They feel like they've learned all that they can learn. So why not quiet quit? Why not just mail it in? I think you have to constantly, intentionally put yourself in a position to learn new things.
I like this is more for this consulting thing. Like we've been hearing so much about the consulting business or say booking appointments. Like how does this cycle actually work? Uh, is it more of like on the freelance side, like as people work for the freelance businesses, or how do you attract clients, or do you have a specific team who help you with those things? Or let's say I just take second more. Let's say I have a CEO reaching out to me and I have to advise him or her on certain thing. It could be on the value proposition of their brand or for the thought leadership content that they need to come up with. So do I need to have a team who can assess the entire website, get back with proper report, or one-to-one works?
I can't speak for every consultancy out there because I don't know how they all work. But I can only speak for myself and I can only speak for other people that I know in the industry that are consultants and that are doing well. If I look at my business, I work primarily off of my pipeline is filled 3 primary ways. It is through my content and people reaching out and saying, "Hey Jason, I think we could potentially work together. I think some of your services could be super useful. Let's have a catch up to see if we're aligned." That's the number 1 way. The number 2 way is referrals from agencies primarily who are taking clients in, they get them into discovery. They realize that the client is not ready for discovery. They realize the client is too early to engage with an agency, and they need someone to help sort out all of the. They need someone to help sort out all of the messy first bits of the discovery, of the high-level solution architecture, of the platform search and select, of the partner search and select, all those different processes. The 4 pillars of my Fit for Commerce framework are people, process, tech, and data. And oftentimes merchants need help with those 4 pillars before they ever are ready for an agency. And they need to develop a strategic plan around those 4 pillars. And so for me, that's where a lot of agencies will refer work to me. And then the other one is word of mouth from existing customers who refer other customers to me. They're happy with the services I'm providing and they know of somebody else in the business world or a connection or a friend or a colleague who's working in another company or whatever. And they go, "Hey, you need to go and talk to Jason because we're working with him and he's great to work with and we think he could really help you." So those are the 3 primary ways that my pipeline is filled. I don't do any outbound marketing. I don't do any cold emailing. I don't do any cold DMing. I don't basically do anything cold. Not saying that can't work. I think it can work. I think the reputational damage that you can do in that environment, the risk is very high, right? If you're known as the guy that cold DMs, if you're known as the guy that cold emails, if you're known as the guy that is going to come in hot with the sales pitch every single time, that devalues, I think, your content play, that devalues your value play, that devalues your personal brand. That's what I think personally for me. I feel like it would devalue my personal brand in the market and it would devalue my independence in the market if I took those cold approach models. Now I might get 1 in 100 cold emails that would convert to business, or I might get 1 in 100 cold DMs that might convert to business. But my reputation that I've built over years and years and years is far more important to me and far more valuable to me than winning a single piece of business. So I'm not hurting. I've got plenty of business coming in. I work with people that are a great fit for me and great fit for the services we provide. And I love that aspect of it. I love the fact that I can select and be selective about the kind of partners that I work with because I'm not desperate. I'm not desperate for the business. And I think desperation causes us to do silly things. And I get businesses that have to feed mouths. They've got 30 or 40 staff that they got to keep fed. Sometimes they got to go the cold route. But for me, I just think that the longer you can avoid the cold route, the better off your personal brand is going to be. That's just my personal take on it.
So I could picture it in a way like you mostly give them advices. You tell them, okay, this is where you're going wrong, or this is what you could do. Okay. So let's say I'm just taking an example of commerce. So let's say there's a merchant who's coming and who's technically not very less sound and all of that. So you explain them, okay, because you're struggling with your orders and inventory management and so you need OMS or you need something that can help you with so that's where you'll redirect them to a particular company or commerce in that matter, right?
Yeah. So I help them with search and select for both technology and the implementation partners of that technology. So oftentimes vendors don't do their own implementation. So if you think of somebody like an Adobe Commerce or a BigCommerce or a VTEX or a Shopify, they don't do implementations themselves. They're just the vendor, right? And so we have to help them decide what is the best fit technology for you, but also who is the best fit partner to help you implement that technology. And so I oftentimes am working across getting them to a place where we have a fully documented BRD or business requirements document. So I'll go through a full deep dive discovery with them. We'll get their data into a good place. I'll help them with data engineering. I'll help them with understanding their data and understanding the gaps in their data, understanding data structures, helping them understand the difference between structured and unstructured data for products, what's needed for digital channels. We'll just talk through all of these 4 pillars, the people, the process, the tech, and the data. We'll look at the organizational design. We'll look at their process design. We'll see if that's ready for digital channels. We'll see if it's ready for omni-channel, if they're an omni-channel business. And then we'll basically do a gap analysis and we'll say, okay, you're here today. You want to be there in 12 to 18 months time. What do we need to do to get you there? How can we get you there? How can we get you there as efficiently and quickly as possible? So these are the types of discussions I'm having every single day. And then that usually culminates in a BRD document that then is put out to implementation partners for them to provide a proposal again.
Do you think LinkedIn is the most appropriate channel to reach out to merchants, or is it more of, because that's what I believe, like, please correct me if I'm wrong. Like, I believe LinkedIn is more of wherein you're getting in touch into the eyes of partners, or let's say potential partners or the agencies.
They've got something like 500 million members. So, merchants reach out to me all the time through LinkedIn and say, we think you're potentially a good fit. Let's sit down and have an initial chat. What's next steps? If we wanted to work with you, what do next steps look like? So I think that it's a bit like Facebook. People oftentimes say, well, my customers aren't on Facebook, or my customers aren't on Instagram, or my customers aren't on TikTok. Are you sure? Or are you just making an assumption? I'm on TikTok. And sure, it's probably a little bit young and a little bit early to be on TikTok, but if I can stake a claim there and I could become well known there as the e-commerce guy on TikTok, then how does that hurt me? It doesn't hurt me. When the platform inevitably ages up, as it's already starting to do, then when all of a sudden in 2 years' time, when the average age on the platform is 50 instead of 25 or whatever it is today, then what happens? I've already staked a claim there, right? And so I think you just never can make assumptions about any channel. I think any channel could work. I think it's about your vibe attracts your tribe. And I think that my content attracts a certain type of audience. Now, some of that audience might be in the market for my services today. Sometimes that audience may be in the market for my services tomorrow. And sometimes they may never be in the market for my services, but that's not why I put out the content. I'm putting out the content to educate me, to educate the market, and then potentially that drives business. But that's not my primary goal. Isn't to drive business through my content. My primary goal is to educate, enlighten, learn, teach. I've got lots of goals with my content long before potential business comes from it.
So it's all about giving more and more content out of the platform or of the channel.
I think it's about intent. Think for me, like my intent is I know what I think inside. I wouldn't, if my intent wasn't pure, if my intent was to drive as much business as fast as possible, every single piece of content would be a selling piece of content. My intent is to teach me first and to learn new things myself first and to hone my writing skills, to hone my craft, to make sure that I'm staying on top of the absolute latest and greatest happening in our industry, to make sure that I stay interested in what's happening in our space, and to make sure that I'm constantly challenging myself to stay at the pointy tip of the spear. That's the primary goal. And then I'm sharing what I'm learning along the way with my audience, right? And I'm doing that in good faith just because I like helping people. It makes me feel good. But these kind of conversations, they make me feel good. I feel awesome when I can give with no expectation for anything in return. That makes me feel super good inside. That makes my heart feel super good. And maybe, I don't know, maybe somewhere inside that's an ego thing. I don't know, but it just makes me feel super good when I can help people. And sure, I got to make a living, and sure, I got to have a business, and sure, I have to make an income, but I don't need to make an income from my content, right? I know that I'm good enough at what I do, and I have a good enough reputation in the industry that I'm always going to be able to eat, that I'm always going to stay busy through my business. And so all I'm doing is really feeding the content flywheel on a regular basis with all the stuff I'm learning, and then just trying to share that with everybody else.
If you'd like to register for free for the Mentor Sessions with Jason Greenwood, head over to greenwoodconsulting.net, scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, and click Get Mentored by Jason. See you there.